Ex Machina is a 2015 science fiction film written and directed by Alex Garland. Caleb, a coder for a search engine company, is selected to spend a week with his employer under the false pretense that he won a contest. Nathan, the owner of the company, reveals that Caleb has been brought to the underground laboratory to test Ava, an artificially intelligent android. The test is meant to judge whether or not Ava is a real AI, a variation on the Turing test. Ava reveals that Nathan is not to be trusted. Caleb grows more and more attached to Ava and contemplates helping her escape. After a series of twists and turns in which Caleb and Nathan try to outmaneuver one another, Ava escapes and, with the help of another android, kills Nathan. Ava poses as a human, flees to a city, and leaves Caleb locked inside the compound. As a film, Ex Machina employs a lot of show-don't-tell foreshadowing. Early on, we see a camera and a computerized image of Caleb's face, giving us a brief suggestion that our protagonist is being watched from the start. This foreshadows the revelation, the plot twist, that Caleb was not chosen at random to be the human component in the test of artificial intelligence, but carefully selected by Nathan. We are given small clues to Nathan's motivations and personality. When Caleb first enters the compound, we linger on this shot, watching him from outside the door as it slowly closes. This confines him, much in the way that Ava is a captive, not to mention the fact that he becomes a captive at the end of the film. Caleb spends all of a few seconds examining a crack in the glass, hinting further at the captive nature of both Ava and himself. We get more visual clues about Nathan the further we move on. The camera pans down to show his reflection after a tense scene in which Caleb, and by extension the audience, is trying to judge what is inside Nathan's mind. This is Alex Garland's directorial debut, but he has already proven himself a highly visual director, giving us insight more through appearance than dialogue. When we see the compound in low, sterile lighting, everything is at peace. When the lighting changes, the mood does too, such as here when the first real hint of danger and mystery is revealed. In this scene, Caleb notices a blue light emanating from this part of the research lab, prompting him to investigate. Nothing is said. We also witness the now famous dance sequence in a mask of color as well. Many times in the film, we see non-narrative interludes of fields, mountains, and rivers. By seeing nature, we are visually given input about the nature versus nurture themes of the film. Ex Machina provokes thought, first gently in the first half of the film, and then rather harshly in the second. Deciphering some of writer-director Alex Garland's ideas that he wished to explore in this film is not as challenging as, say, figuring out a David Lynch film. The enigmatic director of Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive purposefully obfuscates any meaning of his films in public, forcing the audience to be lost in their mysteries forever. Garland, on the other hand, is conversely upfront about the concepts and topics of Ex Machina. By his own frequent admissions within interviews, the film is meant to engage the audience in the subjects of gender and patriarchy. His words. There is more to discuss than that, but authorial intention is a fine place to begin. We can debate death of the author another day, but his intentions are backed up by the text of the film. The narrative itself supports his public declarations about questioning our perceptions of gender. So let's do that very thing. Patriarchy, in simplest terms, is a society which favors men over women. In feminist theory, the term is used to describe systemic injustice in which women are seen as lesser than men. Nathan is the embodiment of this prevailing attitude, introduced to us while performing a traditionally male activity, so that there are no misgivings about who or what he represents.
Did it get on you?
No, it's all right. I got it.
Dude, you're wasting your time talking to her. She doesn't understand English. Just give her the napkin.
He fashions androids, all women, and treats them quite literally as things. They eventually fight back to reclaim their independence, their self-worth, and their bodies. The term male gaze refers to the way art is structured around a presumed straight male viewer, catering to that demographic with provocative women. In the film, it is revealed that Ava was fashioned specifically for Caleb, a presumed straight male, based on his internet pornography search history. In this regard, Ava is the physical manifestation of male gaze. Some have said Ex Machina does not go far enough. The android is too sexualized, and this muddies the waters of the director's message. I don't feel that this necessarily invalidates the themes of the film, but the criticism is certainly valid. Maybe it's impossible to have a narrative film about the male gaze in which said gaze is not present in some way for the audience. The fictional company in Ex Machina, Blue Book, is a reference to Ludwig Wittgenstein. Although the film does not explore this further, Wittgenstein was a philosopher in the fields of logic and, more relevant to Ex Machina, the philosophy of mind. The so-called mind-body problem, meaning the relationship between them, an attempt to explain how mental states like beliefs and thinking are related to the physical brain. Basically, electrochemical interactions described by what we consider consciousness. Speaking of Ludwig Wittgenstein, this painting is actually his sister, Margaret. It's a portrait by Gustav Klimt. Ava passes by it while wearing a similar white dress. The set designer actually made this choice, not the director. But once Garland saw it, he incorporated it into the film. Ava was created by data from Blue Book, a computer search engine named after Wittgenstein. But in the end, now more human, she resembles Wittgenstein's sister. That's not the only painting in the film, though. Nathan shows Caleb a Jackson Pollock. Automatic painting does not always look like drips and smears, but the point is that Nathan is saying that Pollock's work, painted allegedly without consciously thinking, is the way people behave, by instinct. In reality, Pollock put more care into his paintings than people think, but the film is just showing a visual example of how the mind can work. That is what Caleb is trying to determine in Ava. And yet, human beings do not agree amongst themselves about what consciousness truly is. And if we don't, in what position are we to judge the consciousness of something else? The film forces us to ask this question, and it is given more weight when Caleb clearly begins to question his own existence, cutting himself open to see if he is an android. The scene has no dialogue or internal monologue, but the visuals, much like many other scenes in the film, tell the entire story. Ex Machina may be likened to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The strange thing about people citing Frankenstein as a cautionary tale against playing God is that Victor Frankenstein's hubris may have been what created the creature, but it was Victor's abandonment of his creation that led to his downfall. He didn't invent a monster, he made a person, and then immediately after his birth, Victor shunned his unnatural offspring.
You were right about Nathan. Everything you said.
What's he gonna do to me?
He's gonna reprogram your AI, which is the same as killing you.
Nathan once refers to himself as Ava's father. He also misunderstands something Caleb says that made Nathan think of himself as a god. But the issue in both Frankenstein and Ex Machina is not the advancement of science as a negative, the film's many Oppenheimer references notwithstanding. It's about responsibility. Victor Frankenstein does not take responsibility for his creation after he is born, and for really superficial reasons too. Nathan even more harshly mistreats his androids, both through imprisonment and designing them so he can have sex with them. If he is their father, it is basically child abuse. He is inhuman, not his creation. Caleb says that the creation of Ava is the history of gods. It's probably not a coincidence that the three main characters have biblical names. Ava is a form of Eve. Nathan was a prophet. And Caleb was a kind of spy. He was sent by Moses to evaluate the Promised Land, much as Ex Machina's Caleb is there for evaluation too. Caleb tells Ava a story about someone living in a black and white room, and then seeing the world in color when she sees the sun. This, he says, is the difference between the mind of a computer and the mind of a human, the difference between living as a computer and living as a human being. Later in the film, when Caleb imagines his life with Ava outside of the compound, it is still in black and white. If someone knows she is an artificial intelligence, she can't have a human life. If Caleb recognizes this, so does Ava. That's why she can't allow Caleb to come with her and traps him behind her. When she exits the compound, she sees the sun for the first time. Based on Caleb's story, she is now living as a human. Is there even a difference anymore? Not only superficially, but intellectually? Only without anyone knowing of her nature can she live as a human, with all the good and bad that comes with it.